Hello, guys. Stand by for a quick introduction.
Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Canby, and this is episode 74 with John Haack. John is regarded one of the best powerlifters ever, and he recently is coming off his best meet where he had a 2,300 pound total with an 809 squat, 584 bench, and a 939 pound deadlift. John has another powerlifting meet next week at the Power Surge, and then he sets his sight on World's Strongest Man 90 Kilo at the official Strongman Games. Last year, John competed at the Chaos Classic, taking third among a very stacked class. So let's talk all things Strongman with John, seeing what his expectations are for the official Strongman Games, what can he do, and does he have what it takes to win World's Strongest Man 90 Kilo? Tune in and find out with today's conversation with John Haack. Make sure to drop a like on the show if you're new to the channel. Consider subscribing and also catch up on all podcast episodes in the podcast tab on the channel. Also, if you're enjoying all of the shows, consider joining as a member to support more shows and access to member-only videos. Currently, I have 5 hours of seminar presentations and footage and more to come. Please join the channel and support all things Canby Dude. Without further ado, here is Bilbo Swaggins.
That was cool.
All right. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It makes it easy when there's a lot of professional footage, especially on your own YouTube, so I can go around and take little pieces and bits. But it's interesting. I think it's something I've always kind of wondered. But the Bilbo Swaggins, are you a big Lord of the Rings guy?
Yeah, I do enjoy the movies, and I've read the books. To be honest, I don't really. I actually I hadn't read the books until after I made the Instagram name.
It's almost inspired you because of course, right now my wedding ring is the Ring of Power. I would
Nice.
show you, but it's my precious. But yeah, of course, exciting. So right now you're prepping for, of course, your next meet. So are you competing at 220 or 198 for this upcoming
198. So I've actually just started the water load. So might have to go take a pee in the middle of this, but yeah, this will be my last, hopefully last powerlifting meet at 198, and then do the OSG at 90 kilos, and then commit to moving up to 220.
All right. So, but your last meet was at 220, right? The Ghost.
Yeah.
Clash.
So I planned to cut to 198, and then about halfway, I kind of started a little too high, where I had made that cut before, but it gets pretty uncomfortable at that point, and I just had a really bad time in the sauna where it was way too hot. There's something about the saunas in Miami that always just they're cranked up because they like it hot down there. And yeah, it just gave me a really bad headache. Kind of got to 208, 207 pounds and started to feel really sick. Decided I'm going to go, I need to take a break, lay down for a little bit. Started to feel a little bit better, but by that point, I just felt like it wasn't really worth it to keep cutting. So decided to call it there. Weighed in at 206.
All right, that's pretty easy. But speaking of what does your water load protocol look like? Do you start 1 week out, 2 weeks out?
I start. I'm really bad about drinking fluids, so I start drinking a gallon about 2 weeks out, and then at about a week out, I'll start kind of ramping that up to so I weigh in Friday. Wednesday will be my biggest day at 2.5 gallons of water, and then I'll kind of cut it down Thursday in the morning, and then pretty much nothing from Thursday afternoon till Friday morning.
Oh, interesting. Now, do you get pretty strict in terms of the amount of salt you take in, the food, the salt content of the food, even the type of water? I've heard people just doing distilled water, either or just purified water. What's What's your
I don't
take on
get.
that?
I'll kind of I'll load up on the sodium early in the week to kind of get my I can't remember if it's vasopressin or aldosterone. One of the hormones is based on like your sodium load. Increase that production so that like I'm flushing a little bit more out, and then like Wednesday and Thursday, that's when I'll start to kind of, and by like loading up on sodium, it's basically I don't track it. I just like salt all my foods, and like I'll throw in an extra electrolyte packet into the gallon of jug, or couple electrolyte packets into like the jug of water that I'm drinking. And then on like Wednesday and Thursday when I start to cut the sodium, then that's when I kind of start eating foods that are low in sodium, and just try and get as minimum as possible.
All right, interesting. Yeah, very very similar to what I've done in the past when I was cutting weight. Now I'm upwards of 300 pounds, so I'm probably like 20 pounds heavier since I saw you last at the Arnold. But now with this next powerlifting meet, so competing at 198, are you competing against many other top 198s in the country?
No, the roster for this one isn't super stacked. I think it's kind of more. It's not quite a local meet, but it's not like a international level meet. It's they have a pro day, which is like an invite, but it's at the gym's called Search New Levels, and it's one of my friends is hosting it, so I've been invited to a few times, and finally decided the timing of it worked out really well with doing this meet rather than like American Pro or one of the other bigger meets that are usually closer to November. And this is early enough where I could do this and then kind of shift gears and start focusing on OSG.
Sure. So for instance, is your goal to kind of are you looking to break 2,300 pounds at 198 or 90 kilos, or are you looking just to beat your previous best at 90 kilos?
So 2,300 was the goal for at 198. Obviously, had Ghost Clash, did the 2,300, didn't make 198, so going to give myself one more attempt at it.
All right, excellent. No, how has the prep been overall? And I know you kind of threw in some of the OSG qualifying prep and qualifying in there. So tell us about that.
So overall, it's probably been one of the better preps I've had. Like injury wise, I almost always have like one kind of little thing that, or like something that like will set me back. But this prep, I didn't really have anything like that. All the weights have been moving pretty well. If all things go plan, 2,300 is kind of almost the low end of things. So, I'm feeling really good about where I'm at.
All right. Some big expectations. So when you were, on top of the prep for the powerlifting meet, you were of course you qualified for OSG. Now, did you just do like the max log, sandbag, yoke? And there was one other one, right? There's four events for the qualifying, but
the axle bar deadlift.
Yes. Now, did you do all those? Did you like train a little bit? Like, for instance, did you do a couple prior logs before going for a max, or did you just jump right into it?
So for the axle bar deadlift, I literally just like first day it was open. It was like, I need to like, I can only deadlift really heavy like one day a week, and I needed to be on a deadlift bar. I can't be kind of wasting my training time doing the axle, and I knew whatever I hit was probably going to be the heaviest in my weight class. So just kind of took it one day, hit the 830, I think it was, and
I think that got that one out of the way. Was the best by 30 kilos.
Yeah. So I'm a little bummed by them not making the event be a heavy axle and instead be a rep challenge. But I did practice the log a little bit, the yoke, about the same as the log, maybe a little bit less, and then the sandbags not as much. Originally, I was planning on fully practicing them, and then my August ended up getting super busy with travel. I think I had like 18 flights that month, and it was rough. So because of that, and I still had to focus on the powerlifting meet, that was kind of the priority. So ended up just kind of winging it at the end for those other. Well, I did the yoke at Nadia's gym with her. The other two I had to do on the last day.
Yeah, interesting, but it just I like just kind of how your regular base training is already good enough to, if you even touch this implements a couple times, to get you top of the leaderboard, especially on the qualifying list. And you had some pretty good guys like of course like Nicholas O'Hare. Of course, you're right behind. So you weren't far out. So it'll be interesting if, of course, you spend a little more time, because there are guys that are on that list that will spend maybe an 8 to 12 week prep just to get those qualifying totals, just to make it to their respective world's strongest man, 90 kilo, 105 kilo, 80 kilo, and of course, what have you. So of course, kudos on your end. But so of course I was doing my research. I was taking a kind of a deep dive into some of your kind of powerlifting meets. So I noticed that in your first powerlifting meet, I think you deadlifted somewhere around 600 pounds on your third lift, and then now you've gone up probably 300 pounds in your deadlift alone. Now, how many years was that from between now and your first powerlifting meet?
Would have been, so I did my first meet when I was 20. I'm 31 now, so it's 11 years.
11 years. So 11 years, 300 pounds. So I got on average like almost like 30 pounds per year. What do you like, for instance, like talk to us about that process? Like what do you kind of attribute that to in terms of being able to keep putting on weight, or not putting on weight, but putting on weight on a particular number, especially a static max number? What do you attribute that to when it comes to, again, putting 300 pounds on your deadlift over that time?
That I don't think I've done really anything different than most other people have. It's just being consistent is the biggest thing. It's not like I have some secret training formula or secret compound or anything like that. It's just been I've gotten lucky with genetics, and injuries haven't really set me back. And then just staying consistent and just loving kind of the sport of it makes it.
Sure. Yeah. I would say, love and passion is probably the biggest driver. So you said during that time you've been let's not knock on wood, of course. You've been pretty injury free.
Yes, for the most part. A few, like obviously little things here and there, but nothing that's set me back more than like nothing where I've had to take more than like a week fully off of training. And if it is like more than that, it's usually just like, I can't like deadlift for like a month or something like that, but I can still squat and bench. So I can kind of work around whatever I've had. Sure.
Now, I think a big thing when people could talk about consistency is also programming consistency. So they're not missing weights throughout the prep. So they're not trying to go too much over potentially like a RPE or going over a percentage for what their body can maintain or produce that current day. Now, like for instance, throughout, especially kind of in the last few years, are you missing many weights for yourself? Or are you pretty consistent in terms of you hit everything that you program?
I'll miss a few lifts here and there. Usually like per prep, not too much in the off season, but like during prep, I'll miss maybe, I don't know, like a couple singles on squat, bench, and deadlift. But I feel like my misses aren't too detrimental to my programming. It's kind of running joke with my training partners that if I miss a lift, I'll come back and hit like 2.5 kilos more the next week.
Sure. I imagine Andy will probably pump you up for the next set if you miss there. Now, out of the three lifts, which one's your favorite?
That's tough. It's usually whichever one's like doing the best at the moment is the one I enjoyed training. Like most consistently, bench is usually my favorite one. Like we do I always ask people like fuck, marry, kill, squat, bench, deadlift. I'd say marry bench because it's always consistent. It's good to me. Fuck deadlift because like it's not always there, but when it's on, like it really hits. And then kill squat because I don't know, squat's kind of scary. That one's the one where like if you're gonna really mess yourself up, it's gonna be on squat.
Sure, absolutely. But yeah, there's nothing like when your deadlift is, I would say, on full blast or just feeling awesome because it's just usually that's the best. Even the right after is the best pump in the world.
Yeah,
big deadlift, very similar to maybe a big
too much
log
like a
or
roller coaster.
big stone.
Yeah, it's too much of a roller coaster where you're like you don't want to marry like the best sex of your life because they're kind of usually a little crazy, but that one night stand kind of vibe to it. For friends with benefits.
So staying on deadlift. So of course, I think out of those 3, deadlifts is probably my favorite. It probably used to be squats, but I think as of late, I think since my deadlift has been going up the last 3 years, I definitely almost like deadlifts as much as I do overhead pressing. So when I think about, like, for instance, overhead pressing, my keys to success, I always have to make sure I have a great dip. I make sure to push the weight or push the bar. Of course, kind of like I call it the body pop. So really triplets end up. And then I always think about the finishing cues in terms of a great split or push myself under. But like when it comes to like keys of success, do you have a few things that you think about on the deadlift? Like if I do these 3 things or 4 things, maybe 10 things, I will definitely hit this lift.
No, not really. Honestly, like I've kind of joked about how deadlift is very much like you just gotta like once you step up to the bar, you just gotta turn your brain off and just do it. Like people ask me like what goes through my head when I'm lifting, and at this point, especially like on like squat, bench, deadlift are pretty easy lifts. It's not like a power clean or something or like a hang clean.
Sure.
Where it's pretty easy, and it's kind of like I don't know if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, but like it's kind of like Ultra Instinct at this point where I just don't even think about the lift. I just do it.
I hope more episodes come out. It's been a few years since Dragon Ball Super has come out with anything. But for let's say deadlift, like, so if you miss a deadlift or or the deadlift wasn't as clean as you like, what's usually the piece that where you were missing? Is it more like, for instance, potentially not like squeezing your glutes, maybe not keep your lats tight enough, not bracing well? Like, is it certain parts of the lift, like if I brace well, if I have a good, let's just say if I have good tightness in my upper back and or just say push the hamstrings, is there anything that usually potentially if you don't do well on a lift, that's the main cursor of it?
So there's never like, I wouldn't say there's like always the same thing that kind of holds me back. It's, at this point, like on all 3 of the lifts, there's kind of, obviously they're all compound movements. They're going to be multiple different muscle groups. One of them is going to be a weak point. I'm kind of at a point in my training where all 3 of like, I'm pretty balanced, I guess, where like sometimes it's like it feels like my glutes are weak. And if that's the case, then I'll like focus on glute training for the next like training block, or like quads or back or kind of the weak point. It's kind of just like feeling what felt weak on that like failed deadlift. Like I was like, oh, I didn't keep my back as tight as I could have there. Then I'll focus on back. But I can't really say there's like, oh, this is the thing that's always going to be my weak point and where I fail.
All right. Interesting. We do have a couple of questions coming in. So Robo Pissatron it usually comes on the show and always comments. So thank you for always commenting. But he goes, "You got the goat on the channel." Yes, we do. But yes, he asked, "Do you ever train with a buffalo bar or cambered bars on bench?"
No, I don't. I think bench is basically always a straight bar for me, or regular power bar.
So you don't get too fancy with it. You kind of stick to the basics.
Yeah, for the most part. If I'm going to do variations, it's usually like close grip, Larson, Sometimes chains. Those are kind of my staple variations for bench.
Sure. And then, of course, back on the deadlift, because, of course, I'm a big deadlift, of course, one of my favorite movements. But do you have favorite accessories on deadlifts, or generally just other exercises that are going to help you achieve the deadlift that you want?
Yeah, deadlift. I don't do too many variations on, just because deadlifting already enough is pretty taxing, especially like the weights that we're moving. It's pretty tough. I'd say like pause deadlifts are probably the one exception to that.
So you're saying you do like pause deadlifts?
Yeah, I do like pause deadlifts.
That's probably the one thing I probably always avoid, because
like I haven't done like
just a lot of
I haven't done like a deficit or an RDL in I don't know how long.
All right. Of course, that's pretty interesting. So it's funny. So Robo came back and asked him about the bamboo bars. I don't use the bamboo bar, but I imagine you never used the Tsunami bar in any of your training.
I've used it like once. Like I don't train with that. Ooh. I've only like ever played with it when one of the multiply or like West Side guys at my gym has it out, and I'll be like, oh, let me try that. But no, it's not really.
All right. So what do you think of it?
It's interesting. I get why people use it, but I don't think stability is really something that I need focus on.
Sure, absolutely. But I would think maybe potentially with some of getting more into the strongman, I think it could be a pretty interesting fact. So let's of course get into it. But this is actually, again, he's given us good questions today, so I'm going to stick with Mr. Robo. John, do you think there is pressure on you to perform at OSG, considering what you've done in powerlifting? Does the pressure help you perform, or does it make it difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's like a little bit of pressure. I think especially, I think going into like chaos last year, there was not really that much pressure. It was kind of like, this is my sport. Like, if I get like top 10, that's cool. Like, I think people would still like respect it. And then coming in at third, and that was, way above what I was expecting. So, now like I kind of got a taste of like the podium, and now I have that like expectation on myself to try and get first. And I think that kind of gives me a little bit of pressure. That helps me. Like I'd say overall, when people say like, or when my biggest motivator is when like people criticize me on Instagram, and a lot of the times it's like stupid criticism, but like the little comments, they're the ones that get to me the most. And then it's like, fuck this guy. Like,
so the memes get to you then. So a good mean meme will get to John.
Memes not so much, because memes are like usually funny, and like if they do it like funny, then like I like them, and like it does get to me, but I'll like it's just a little comment where it's like someone who doesn't really lift that much just like makes a totally like just like a really dumb comment almost gets me more than anything.
Sure. I can understand that. But going back to OSG, because at the Chaos Classic, you ended up beating a lot of good guys that did well in of course, the following shows after. So you beat the eventual podium at World's Strongest Man 90 Kilo 2023. So in Gavin McInerney, who hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Gavin, Tyler Davis and Derek Owens, they were the podium last year. I think you beat the eventual America's Strongest Man 90 Kilo and Andrew Pipiot. And then for this year, you ended up beating the eventual podium from the Chaos Classic 2024 in CJ Kraus, Josh Lancaster, and then Simeon Peplinski. So so that's Simeon. Simon Peplinski. Okay. He was the Polish guy. I'm not sure if you remember, right, Polish speaking guy. But the main guy you need to watch out for is Dane Bonin, one of my buddies from Rhode Island. He's wondering how many reps on the 590 axle does John think he has?
God, that's so, I don't know. I heard there's going to be a rumor that they might make like a kind of the same as the log, where they have a higher weight that trumps all the reps at the lower one. I'm really hoping it's something like upper 600s. I'm like, let's make it a 700. But like 590. So we did 640 at Chaos, and I got 12 reps, I think, maybe 13. I can't remember. So I guess I would hope for like, I feel like at that point it's just more cardio at that point. It's like maybe 15.
It's a lot of cardio. Yeah, that would be a great number. So last year, or not, 2 years ago, they had the same event, same weights, but they did 45 seconds because they were, of course, they had the hurricane, so they had to bunch up a couple events. So they made it 15 seconds less to have the event go faster. But I want to say for each weight class, like 9 or 10 was the high point. I think 105 there was 10, heavyweights there was 10. I forget what 90 kilo was that year. But I would say 10 was 10 within 45 seconds. So you would think that 12 within 60 is pretty good. So 15 would be a really strong number. So, but in terms of the event, so you have the axle, you have the log for reps, and then you also have the car yoke. It looked like you posted a pretty heavy yoke with kind of minimal training. So I'll be excited to see what you do with that. And then I feel like log for reps might be a better event for you than maybe a max log. Per se, like you had at the Chaos. But what are you thinking about the event so far?
Yeah, I'm liking it so far. I think like the 310 log should be doable. If I can get like 1 or 2 reps on that, I'll be happy with it. Just the biggest thing is I don't want to lose too many points on the log. I know I'm not going to win the log. I'd hope
not with that attitude.
I mean, there's a lot of really good log lifters in the 90 kilo class. I was like, yeah, maybe if I had like a full year to the log, maybe I could get the technique down and get better at it. But yeah,
so you got your meet next week,
mm-hmm.
And then you got all of October, all of November, and then a week in December. So you almost have an 8 or 9 week prep. I felt like if you kept it, if maybe your last lift being maybe 92-95% of max, and you really focused on reps, I think you could squeeze out 3 reps at 310. Just based off what I've seen. I remember you did around like 310, 305 when we worked out in Western Mass this last year. Oh, that was last year now. So I would think that since with all the training and at that time you did that, you benched like 500 the day before. So I think are you planning on slowing down on some of the powerlifting movements, training for OSG? Are you going to, or what were your thoughts in terms of that kind of prep?
Something kind of similar to Chaos, where it's like, I'll keep in. I usually train 5 days a week, so like 2 of them will be event days, and then 3 of them will be kind of more powerlifting based training. I think that'd be pretty good split for me. Also think that I can eke out a little bit more with the log and all the other movements, just because going into Chaos, I was like 12 weeks out from a powerlifting meet at the time, which is when I normally start my supplement cycle. And so because of that, I didn't want to run like a 20-week cycle. So I kind of went a little bit lighter on what I was taking for Chaos, whereas like now I'll have, I'll be like 8 pounds heavier as well. So I think that'll help with the log.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm not sure. So Chaos was a 1-day show, correct?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Because with OSG, you have a 3-day show. So you have 1 day. You have a day to recover once you weigh in, and then you compete the first day. And then each day you compete, you have more days to take in more food. So I remember like my last OSG, I did a weight class. I was 248 on day 1, and I was 252, 253 on day 3. So I gained five more pounds. So I wonder if that will have effect, and as well as usually the events are going to be a little more spread out. But I think this year they're changing it, so there's a little more flights. But I think it makes it easy. You're going to have you're going to have some home state advantage, right? How far are you from Madison?
I'm in Madison.
Oh, you're all right.
Yeah, the gym I train at's literally
that's easy. So
like a 6-minute drive from the Coliseum.
All right. Well, that'll make it easy. So yeah, good home field advantage right there. So you have OSG, so that'll be a good round. I'm hoping to be down there. So watching, of course, you and all the other best in the world compete and go at it. But after OSG, are you planning on doing an off season? Any big goals for after OSG?
So after OSG, I'll be the next planned meet is ABS Clash of Titans in Ireland in like end of April. So I'll have like a few weeks of kind of off-season training, get back into the swing of things with powerlifting, and then start prep for that.
All right. So what does a short off-season look like for John?
It'll just be, pretty standard training. I do 5 days a week, like I talked about. I'll bench probably 3 days a week, squat, have 2 squat sessions per week, and then 1 deadlift. I know it's 6, but I double up on squat and bench on one of the days.
All right. So you stay in the movement. I wasn't sure if you, for instance, go totally off season, you go totally away from the weights, or if you get into a little more bodybuilding movements, or maybe go swimming or take a hike. But
no, it's always been powerlifting focused training.
Awesome.
Just more like instead of hitting like I guess I count my off season as like when I'm not hitting singles on squat, bench, and deadlift. I'll be hitting more like in this rep range of like 3 to 8 reps or so for multiple sets.
Sure. So you're saying that of course the powerlifting show coming up is probably gonna be your last show, and then from there you're gonna go up to 220. Yep. But the strongman historian wanted to ask, what's the heaviest body weight you would consider pushing up to? Do you have any desire to get up to 242, 275, 308?
Not 240, not 242. I don't think I want to go. Like I feel like I can get up to like 225 pretty easily, like pretty comfortably, and then just like kind of slowly, eat pretty close to maintenance, but just kind of do what my body naturally wants to do at that weight. If it means going up to like 230, I'll do that. But I start getting like uncomfortable above 220 right now. So we'll see.
Well, getting away is quite the adjustment. I'm kind of in the phase right now. Of course, after my bicep, I was probably after 8 weeks or so, I got back down to 280. And then once I started training, I put on some more weight, and of course I was pushing the weight, but I've yet to be able to put a tight belt buckle when I deadlift right now. So I can't get as tight as I used to was. So right now I have a loose lever going for it. So I still can't get into my new leverages at 300 pounds. So I definitely kind of feel you there. They always say that the leverages are going to change with body weight, but you never really know until you actually do it, and your gut's in the way. So it's interesting. So before we get into our next section, so I usually have, of course, I'm pretty positive on the show, but I have a section called "What Grinds Your Gears." Two episodes ago, I had Lucas Haddon on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lucas, but he was last year's America's Strongest Man, and he recently took 3rd at the Strongest Man on Earth competition, which is part of the part of the Shaw Classic weekend. And he mentioned that he's part owner of a gym, the Dungeon Strength, that's out on the West Coast, and he has a lot of young powerlifters. But he said there's a whole new kind of different culture with the young powerlifters these days, especially within the Raw. Of course, needed all the calibrated plates, needed the carpet. So he kind of has, so some of those young powerlifters kind of grind his gears. Sometimes they're too scientific based. Sometimes they don't really get after it or do what they need to do and get strong. But what do you think about I would say the new age powerlifters are coming into the Raw scene, especially since you started 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's some things that like some of them do that like they do grind my gears. I think bringing it like their own carpet in, put under them on bench, I kind of roll my eyes at that. And then the biggest thing that like irks me is that so we have a lot of like the UW powerlifting team that comes into the gym I train at, and we have like 4 combo racks, all calibrated plates, and they'll come in. They're all on the same team, and they don't train together though. Like there'll be like 3 of them, and they'll each be on a different combo rack, all benching with like the same weight and pretty much the same rack height, and that's kind of what grinds me. I don't know if it's like because of COVID of like kind of having to have like your own space, or if that changed the culture or what. But yeah, I feel like there's not as much. Like I know powerlifting and strongman are kind of like individual sports, but at the same time, there's I don't know, not that group training aspect as much now.
Sure, absolutely. I can see that. I said on my last podcast with Austin Andrade that Strongman Saturdays are probably some of the best days, just because you're all training together, doing the same implements. Of course, if changing plates either way for the next person, and there's always that cohesiveness and that kind of bonding when you're, of course, doing the same thing together. But I can see how that can, if you're all on different plates, that's 3 different bars you have to set up. If they're all, let's say, doing 300 or 400 pounds, that's 1,200 pounds to move around with. Rather, you can just move around a 25-pound here, 25 pounds there.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can see that.
Heavyweight that's squatting like 800 pounds versus like, some lightweight that's doing, 1 red or something like that, or even like a blue. Like I get that as being, maybe that isn't the most efficient if you guys train together, but if you guys are within, a couple reds of each other, then just train together.
Couple reds. So besides those young powerlifters, is there anything else in the world of powerlifting or strongman or just gym culture in general that grinds your gears, John?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. There's definitely some things that I'll see and I'll kind of roll my eyes. I think the social media comments of people who don't know what they're talking about, but think their opinion matters. That irks me. And then every time I do an axle bar deadlift video and post it, and all the comments of the like, oh, what? Like he's using straps, so it doesn't count. Like, isn't the point of an axle bar to train your grip? And it's just like every video, every time it's the same comment. It's just so annoying.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did see one of my 105 kilo buddies do a YouTube video talking about you doing an axle bar versus doing a regular lift. It was like of course, a regular bar. Of course, one bar is, of course, you can has a little more whip. The axle is just so unforgiving, and almost a different lift. And I imagine you're not used to lifting in straps, so that's a whole nother dimension that you have to get used to. But it's funny how far they take the analysis.
Yeah, when I was doing Chaos last year, it usually takes like till like the third week or so before I start feeling kind of comfortable, like figuring out how to set up and get my air when I'm attached to the bar versus with a power bar where I usually get it at the top. So I think because of that, like I probably could do a little bit better on the max axle than the 830 that I got. I think if I had like trained it a little bit more, I think like 850 would have been there.
All right. Interesting. Well, that's very, very, very cool to know. I know for the heavyweights, doing 900 pounds was a big deal. So doing 850 at 90, of course, 90 kilos would be pretty cool. So we're getting towards the end of the show. So I'm gonna get some of the viewer comments. So from Dark Horse, is OSG a one-time thing? Do you plan on doing 105 kilo once you move up to 220? Also, what's one piece of advice you wish you knew when you started out?
I'm not sure. Past ABS Clash Titans, I don't really have anything planned. I do enjoy Strongman, but there are a lot of good powerlifters coming up. So I do want to defend my title against them, and Yeah,
That's a
to
good
do
one.
that,
Who are the guys who's John Haack looking out for? Like, who are these guys that you want to defend your title against?
the biggest one is Colton. I can't. It's the last name. I think he's from South Africa, but he's a monster. And then Derek Thistlewaite. He's a really solid lifter. And then there's a lot of the tested guys who are doing crazy weights that, you know, I gotta keep myself far enough ahead of them that they stop making the comparison of like, oh, what if like, would John be able to do these numbers natty kind of thing? I hate that, those hypothetical questions. So
absolutely, but people love to, especially in the Reddit forums, they love to throw the hypotheticals so they can comment and chime in and look smart. So I think that's part of the game. But of course, that's where you get some of the, I would say, kind of some of the diehard fans are some deep in the Reddit forums. I don't know how often you go in those, but it's always pretty interesting. So of course, Nikki wanted to ask, not sure if this was asked, but what are your thoughts on strongman training / competing? How has the adjustment been from going from powerlifting to strongman? That's a good question. Good question.
I mean, I love it. It's a nice change up. Like going back to prepping for chaos, coming off of that, I think it just made me that much better of a strength athlete, because going back to powerlifting training, it was pretty easy. It's like a different way of pushing myself, and yeah, made doing like off-season volume way easier. My cardio was better. My like whole posterior chain was significantly stronger. And let me lower. Let's see, how has the adjustment been going from powerlifting? Yeah, I don't think it was like too hard of an adjustment, because there's like a cardio aspect to it, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like I'm doing CrossFit cardio. It's, you know, I can dig deep for 60 seconds versus, you know,
sure,
I have to do like a 20-minute exercise, then no.
Absolutely. I think the only things that I think just the small adjustment, it might be just some of the weird kind of little strategy items. I wish I was in your corner for when you did the sandbag hold off with Nick O'Hare for second and third place.
I'll be honest, I went into that with just like, I'm not gonna win this. Like I know, I was dead.
But you know, because that's happened before. Especially there's a 105 contest that happened the same thing, but in a kind of in a different manner, different implement. But you of course, when you're given the instructions, you kind of held the bag straight up and down and squeezed. But if you should see Nick had his belt on really low. He had maybe like a slight tilt back, so it's kind of sitting on his belly, getting a little bit on the belt. So there's a little friction there, so he didn't have to hold it as long. So that was a very veteran move. So when it comes to like the switch between powerlifting and strongman, there's just those little incremental things. Sometimes just taking account of the surfaces, taking account of different implement types is just those are little adjustments that sometimes someone like a savvy veteran like Nick O'Hare will know over maybe like Mr. John Haack. But speaking of the devil, hello, Nicholas O'Hare. Thanks for chiming in. I hope you're excited to compete with Mr. John Haack and also Dane Bonin, because Dane's going to bring the heat. And me and Dane are training tomorrow, so of course I want to shout him out. But big question is, when everything is said and done, what are you looking to achieve in the sport of powerlifting / strongman / strength sports and life?
I mean, just go down as one of the best like strength athletes of all time. Definitely think that's possible in powerlifting, and that's kind of why I want to venture outside of powerlifting and strongman and just get, you know, I want to be, you know, strong, not just a really good powerlifter. Maybe be one of those. I watched like Strongest Man in History, and with like Nick Best and those guys, and I was like, that'd be cool to be like, you know, one of these legends.
like a Louis Steer that they come back and try to break all your old records or
Yeah.
try to break all your old feats of strength. Yeah, that'll be very neat. How many more years do you see yourself competing at the highest levels of powerlifting and or strongman?
I don't know, because like some days I'm like, God, my body is starting to like get sore and achy. Like, do I really want to keep doing this for like another 10 years? And then I at the same time I try and think of like what am I gonna do when I don't have like I don't know, because at the end of the day I do just love lifting and pushing myself for myself. So I don't know. I can't give an answer on that one. I like probably 5 years will be like a good guess, I think.
All right, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm 35 years old. I think I could push competitive strongman until I'm 40, especially kind of moving up a weight class. I have 105 miles on me, but I don't have heavyweight strongman miles on me yet. So I think I could potentially push for 5 years and then potentially just go back, maybe in my 40s, go back to just being a hobbyist and just picking and choosing kind of fun strongman events that are still kind of within my capabilities. And then I hope one day that my child would be interested in strongman, and then I could do masters over 50 or over 60, and they're maybe in a teen division or doing whatever. Right. So of course, outside of course, the gym, of course, you put a lot of effort, you and your partner, Andy, into the Proven Strength app. So yeah, tell me all about that.
Yep. So we have like the app. It's basically the same software as like Thor Bjornson's training app. We have, I think, 30 programs now. I'm pretty sure something around like 25 to 30. Yeah, most of them are powerlifting. I usually put my own training on there as well. So there's kind of a few programs that have the hybrid of powerlifting and strongman training, and then like power building, all those ones.
But it probably definitely good build. I always say that for a good off season, I think you should change things up. And then if you get into, for instance, like a squat, bench, deadlift phase, I think it's always good to use programs from, I would say, accredited or accomplished powerlifters like yourself. So I think for the viewers, something to consider kind of going forward. Where's the best way people can find you? I know you're hot on Instagram. You got your YouTube channel, which again, I appreciate all the high quality video content. But are you on any other social medias?
Not really. Just I had a TikTok. Didn't really like it. Couldn't figure out the algorithm. Just I don't know. don't really use it anymore. Just the
TikTok is tough. It's tough.
Yeah. I see the people that blow up on there, and I'm just like, oh, I don't like this.
So mainly Instagram and YouTube. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
Any Discords, any Twitches, any LinkedIns?
Nope.
But it's funny on TikTok because I listened to Gary V back then. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and he's like, and one of his things, like, if you're not on TikTok or LinkedIn, you're missing out. So of course I was on LinkedIn for work as an executive recruiter, but I thought I could try TikTok for strongman. And then a bunch of people kind of hopped in. Or actually I started TikTok. I pretty much just posted all my lifting videos, and then it started blowing up. But all the people that liked it were like from Bangladesh, from India, probably 50% of the likes. But these were getting like millions of views. So I got up to over 100,000 followers, like really quick. And then India bans TikTok, and then my account just dies. So now I struggle getting like 400 or 500 views on TikTok. Sometimes I'll get a few thousand if I'm lucky, but just a weird, I was a weird kind of situation there. But I do appreciate you coming on, John. I hope to hopefully see you down at OSG, and of course watch your performance myself. But in terms of finishing the podcast, I always have whoever who's doing the podcast to leave us with one piece of advice for the listeners. So what's the last piece of advice you want to leave the listeners to finish off the show?
Find I'm just gonna say, like, there's been world records that are, like, everyone's like, oh, what's the best training method? Like, people have set world records, training like West Side, which I'm not a big fan of, but people have, you know, set records, train that style, you know, wave periodization, kind of more like high volume, high frequency style training. It doesn't really matter too much. Just find whichever training style is the most fun for you, and that's probably going to work the best. And like, just make sure you're having fun in the gym. Or if like, you start not having fun in the gym, find a different like physical activity that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be lifting.
Sure, I've heard that from many other greats, but we heard it from Mr. John Haack. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and of course, until next time, stay strong.
Thank you.